Hello everyone. Today is Monday, and that means it's time for a Monday grab bag. This is going to be a little bit unusual one, but is something that I have gotten a lot of interest in lately, and that is today we are going to be doing not a playthrough of a game, but instead we are going to be going through a computer-aided design program, or CAD. And what computer-aided design is colloquially, you might know it as 3D modeling or various other names. Computer-aided design can be a very broad term, so it isn't necessarily making a digital 3D object. Computer-aided design can also be laying out a blueprint using a computer or various other things like that. But for today's Monday grab bag, we are back to playing things that don't even have a category on Twitch, which is exactly that's my comfort zone, playing stuff that doesn't even have a category. So we've defaulted to art this time, and today's stream is going to be me, Mu the Slime, teaching you how to make a 3D model. PicoCAD2 is the program we will be using for this. Very recently came out, and full disclosure, I was a tester for this during a closed beta test. This, however, was because of my previous interest in the original PicoCAD program, and it is actively something that I seeked out to enter a raffle to become a closed tester, and I happen to be a winning ticket. So that's my disclosure here, as I have received this program for free, but nonetheless, I do heartily recommend it, and I find it very fun. It also... An issue I've always had with 3D modeling programs is there are 5 trillion shortcuts. There is a whole bunch of different buttons and functions and different things that you can do with it. And so people who are intimately familiar with it already have a lot of power to do a lot of incredible things with it. Programs like Blender or Maya or various other 3D modeling programs. But the thing is, if you aren't already entrenched and already know everything, then it is like trying to understand a brick wall. PicoCAD cuts away a lot of the cruft, and while it does have its limitations, the limitations it chooses are very interesting and specific, and that is one of the things I love about it. And as a result, I think it will be pretty decently easy to teach you how to make a 3D model. Starting off, I'm going to run a poll here for, have you ever made a 3D model on the computer before? Yes, no, or only something very basic, like a cube or something, you know? Have you gotten a cube on the screen? Let's fire up the program, though, shall we? Oh, 4:3 layout. There we go. So far, poll respondents have been no or something very basic. So this should be new territory for several of you. So first off, when you start up PicoCAD, you'll get a little intro with a little bit of music, and then you will get this screen. So first, we're going to need to talk about what are we even looking at here. By the way, questions actively encouraged. Feel free to ask anything. So if we right-click and drag, we can move these views around, and some of the other views also seem to move a little bit with them, but we're kind of moving lines around. And then if we left-click on this one, we can make these 3 lines move in a way too. So if we right-click on any of these windows, we will get a menu. And these are add pyramid, add prism, add cube, add pent prism, add hex prism, add cylinder, add plane. And so our first step is going to be to add a shape. So let's just click on one of these windows at random. Let's just do this one and say add cube. Okay. Well, now we're even more confused because we said to add a cube and a square has appeared on every single screen. So what's happening here? Well, this is what's called a standard view. And this is...
Thank you, safety_, for following.
Thank you for following. This is a standard view, perspective view, as it might be called. And if we hold down the mouse and rotate it a bit, you'll see that we can spin our view around.
Thank you, Leg, for following.
And this is a 3D representation of the cube that we just made. Although this particular window has a few buttons on it as well, that these other ones do not. So let's try experimenting with them. First, there's this. If we click on that, and if we mess with the views on everything, it seems to reset. So this is camera reset. Simple enough. What's this? That didn't seem to do anything. Okay, this one below. We can turn the cube solid green, or we can give it a checkerboard pattern. We can also zoom in, and this works on each of the windows. And then we've got a color picker. Let's not worry about that yet, though. So with this very basic square, in the 3D version, we can right-click on a face, and we get a custom menu that depends on what we right-clicked. So if we right-click just off here, then we have the option to make a new shape. If we click on one of the faces of this cube, however, we get different things. We have face properties, which has more stuff that we will get to later. Now DT too, Alexian. We have extrude, we have delete, we have more properties, but for the mesh instead of the face. And we have the option to clone and delete. So if we clone it, and if we clone it, and we can just kind of repeatedly do that too. And so now you can see that these three views have different sort of things represented in them. This one, for some reason, is still just a single square. But these two are now showing what we'd expect out of the 3D view here, which is 4 squares above each other. And so the reason for this is if we move these around a bit... One second, please. Control X, I see. There. If we move these around a bit, you can see that the position of these also moves. And so ultimately, if we go back into if we reset all of our viewports here, let's try grabbing this bottom cube and moving it to the side. You can see on this one, it moves to the side as well, but on the other one, it doesn't. And if we do this one, it moves to the side on that upper left view, but doesn't on this one. But if we move up and down, it does. So ultimately, the answer to this puzzle is the upper left here is what this model looks like if you were to do this. Can you see how they match up? The only reason that they don't perfectly match up is because we have perspective here. The left screen, the left screen, the bottom left screen, and the bottom right screen are all called orthographic projections. An orthographic projection is when a camera doesn't have any sort of like fish eye to it. So you see how, despite the fact we are looking straight down from above, we can still see this wall of this cube. That is because we are a non-orthographic projection. We have perspective. These views...
Thank you, Alex Davis, for following.
These views do not have perspective on them. And so, if we view it straight on, we will never see the side walls of these. And so, while this can be initially confusing, these screens represent XYZ. Correct. And so, while this can be initially confusing, this is ultimately extremely helpful to have a top view that is orthographic And you see if I hover over a corner here, it highlights it on every view, which will help you get a better sense of where things are. Having these side views be orthographic is ultimately extremely helpful. So if we just pull this out here, we've made one cube with a big old spike attached to it. And you can see that is represented in a top view, which again, if we were to check, these two views match up. A front view, which if we were to check, these views match up. And a side view, and once again, these views line up. So if you think of this as the parent view, the view of which everything else is based on, then this is what the parent view looks like from above, from the front, and from the side. This is the basics of the viewport windows for a 3D modeling program. This is a somewhat standard function of many different CAD softwares where you can have a view, have multiple views of an object. That way you can keep visually referencing from multiple angles what 3D shapes you're making. So with this, you should have to some degree an orientation of what you are looking at when you are working with a program like this at all. Top view, front view, and side view. These are orthographic, so they have no perspective. This one is non-orthographic, and so it has perspective, and you can see diagonally, and you can rotate the view. So let's clean up here. Whoa, hang on. I accidentally resized the window. Okay, I think we're fine. So let's reset things here. And from a fresh plate, let's try and make something that is geometrically simple. If we were to make a shape that is an object that exists in the real world that is very simple shape-wise, there's a couple things we could do. We could do a cardboard box, and if you wanted to be really, really basic with it, there we go. I made a cardboard box. Not the most convincing thing, but, you know, there it is. But if we wanted to make something herding boxen, thank you, Yervis. Boxen. Did you know that boxen is the plural of box? That's true. That's true because I told it to you. Anyway, let's try making a toaster. And so a toaster, in a sort of cartoon style, consists of a few different shapes. So first, let's get this view, because I find it easiest to look at. And we've got our top view, and as you can see, if I hover over this face right here, you can see that that one highlights. And you can see that the top line of this, the front view, also highlights. And the top line of that one also highlights because that is the side view. And so a toaster is more rectangular than this. So what we can do is we can multi-select these corner pieces. You notice how if I hover over these, if I hover over this, I select the face highlights. A face being a single side of this box. But if we go to one of these corners, these are called vertexes. Or this is called a vertex, and the plural of this is vertices. Not vertexes. Ignore that I said that. So if I were to highlight like this, because this is the top view, how many vertices would doing this select? There's 2 dots here, but if I were to do this, it actually selects 4. And that is because there are vertices perfectly lined up behind these. And if you look at the front and side views, maybe you'll be able to understand why. But if we drag those out, you can see now from the side view, we have a long box, we have a normal box, or a even shaped box, and a long box at that perspective. Once again, front, top, side. And you can see these windows match up to that. That will always be true. Is there a way to label or preference different axis perspectives? If you want to work in a specific perspective, one thing you can do is you can hover over one and hit space. That will bring it full screen and allow you to work on that. But you can, let's see, why? Give me a minute to experiment here. Okay. This is an important lesson that I need to learn, which is when you're using a new program like this, it's very important to very frequently, when you ask, how does this work? How do I do this? The answer is it's probably possible, but you don't know the button for it. And so getting in the habit of going to shortcuts will be a very, very good activity for you. You're going to see a lot of terminology in here that you don't recognize yet, but that's okay. If you're looking for a specific thing, you might be able to find exactly what you're after. Rotate mesh is R plus drag. Scale mesh is T plus drag. There we go. So if you need to get a mesh to rotate in a specific way, you can do that. Although this brings us to another point here, which is the anchor point for which it's rotating is a little odd. And the actual anchor point that it's rotating from, you can see, is that red mark. That red mark appears when you hover over a model, and if you hold, let's see, is it shift drag? Yes. If you start to click, you'll move the entire model. But if you hold shift while doing this drag, you can move this anchor point. And so if we move it to the center, since we changed the shape of our model, and then release shift and click, and now we hold R and pull on the model, you can see it now rotates from that center point. And technically, this can be wherever you want it to be, even outside of the model. If you want the anchor point of it to be out here, then when you rotate, from there it looks the same, but if you were to rotate from here, you'll notice it's orbiting a specific spot. So this is what's known as an anchor point, and I'm going to be real. This is part of the reason I was in testing, is because if it's not listed in the shortcut, there's a chance that no user realizes that's possible. I am one of the users who had no idea it was possible to move the anchor point. And so me noting the fact that, oh my god, you can move the anchor point is part of what made that get put into this menu. So, with that aside complete, let's go and consider. We've got a couple more buttons here that we can mess with, so it's time to look at these. Plus, this is another way to add shapes, much like right-click. Some sort of bullet-pointed list here. And this gets us the overview screen. We have something called cube. I wonder what that represents. And it's got a lock and an eye. The eye toggles visibility. If we want this cube to exist but not be visible, which is very useful when working on complex objects, we can click on the eye. If we want it to exist and be visible, but we are happy with its shape and we don't want to change it in any way, we can click the lock. And so with the lock clicked, no matter what I do, what I grab, what I try and drag. Ever try out Crocodile? That is one thing I wanted to. I have not actually messed with it though. Hello, Coiled Lamb. So we have two different methods of choosing whether we mess with this cube shape that we've made. We can make it invisible, in which case, we can't interact with it at all, and we can't see it, and we can forget about it temporarily. Or we can lock it in place, so we can't accidentally mess with it in any capacity, which allows us to easier mess with things that might be close by, such as a pyramid that I just created. So if I want to grab these pieces of the pyramid and stretch them or whatever, I never accidentally grab the cube. Making sense so far? So, if we right-click on the word cube here, let's rename this to toaster body. Because this is the body of our toaster. If you feel that the snapping is too big, like you see how it moves in steps, that's called snapping. If you hold control, you can slow down the movement to make it much more precise. So that seems about the right proportions.
Take this love. Talad, you have gifted 5 subscriptions to the community.
Thank you so much, Havoc. That will allow you to more precisely move the size and shape and adjust things how you wish. But we've got a toaster body, and we are happy with it, so let's lock it in place. However, we still need to look at it for the sake of reference for how we are making other pieces. So this is the body of the toaster. What else does a toaster have? Well, it's got 2 slots at the top, and we could potentially work on those, but that's getting into territory that's a little complicated. Another feature it has is on one side, it's got a little lever, exactly. And so we could make the lever out of a couple different ways. Oh, little legs. Actually, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful choice. We'll go with that one first. So, from the top view, little legs on the toaster would be cylinders, how about? So we get a cylinder shape, and we just drag it around and take a look at it. And that's way, way, way too big. We just want tiny little feet. And so when we have a question like that, we look at the shortcuts. And we go to modeling, and we see scale mesh. If you're unfamiliar with this terminology, scale is another term for resize. So, animated toaster run cycle. I could probably do that by the end of the stream, Kippers. Like, that could be what we do. Netting overlay. I'm not entirely sure what you mean. As the models get more complex, though, we do have the ability to, for the sake of the advanced users here, we have the ability to parent and folder and combine and extrude meshes as well. But we will be getting to that when we do. So we have one cylinder leg, or toaster leg here, in the form of a way too large cylinder. And as I mentioned, scale is the term for the thing we are looking for. So we shrink this down. And this, when we're working with things like this, you'll notice that when we zoom in, the effects of zooming in become very low, and eventually we can't zoom in anymore at all. And so a thing to remember with modeling software is units are all relative to each other. These don't represent centimeters, they don't represent meters. This toaster body is whatever size we imagine it to be, because the only frame of reference is the other objects. So scaling that cylinder down to that degree might not actually be too good of an idea, because we are running into the limits of size that we are dealing with. However, we can make things significantly larger, because the maximum zoom out is like this. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to select that toaster body and size it way up. Now that tiny cylinder, which used to be about the same size as the toaster, is now nice and small and pretty well suited for being a leg. But the problem we have here is that that's a little stubby. This cylinder should be longer. So if we look at the side view, and let's make it so we can't edit the toaster anymore by clicking the lock. We go to the side view, bring it up in full screen by pressing space, and if we grab this, which is the top of the cylinder, and drag upward, here, let's scoot it over. It's trying to snap to a specific point, and so I might actually, let's see here. One moment. When in doubt, make another model. It could be that we should be doing our shaping before we scale, because you'll notice the snapping wasn't lining up and I was trying to make a cylinder that was kind of like that, which I did not want. I want this to be straight up and down. And so I made a new cylinder, and this one has the correct sizing, or correct anchor points for scaling things, for resizing. So we bring this in, we look at the side view, and we notice that it's quite disconnected, and we can tell that from the perspective view as well. And so we just grab that sucker and we drag it upward, and hey, look, it lines up pretty nicely. It still looks a little wide, so let's scale it down a little further, maybe like that, and then make it just a little up. Yep, once again, we ran into that issue, so. Huh. Interesting. If we hold control, though, we can make sure that it doesn't try and adjust like that. But in any case, sometimes you'll run into weird behavior, and sometimes you just need to work around it. There is some internally consistent reason for that behavior, but it is not useful to me, and I don't want it. So sometimes you gotta work around it. Save often. PicoCAD2 thankfully has auto-saving, so if anything happens to your model, then the most progress you can lose is 10 minutes, and you can set it to be more frequent auto-saving as well. But we have one leg, but we honestly want 4 of them. And we could assemble and resize a cylinder like this again. But you know what would be easier? If we just copied it. And so what we do is we right-click on the model in any of the viewports, and we hit Clone Mesh. And if you see, it looks like nothing happened from this view. But the thing is if we look at the other views, there is a model in here, and you can kind of see it sticking out there. And if we change it to this view, where we can see through things and we only see the edges of objects, you can see, there it is. It did not vanish on us. It did exactly what it was supposed to. It just was buried inside of the toaster. And likewise, if we had turned the toaster body invisible, we would also see it. So we do that 2 more times. Again, trusting the process, because it looks like nothing happened, but there it is. And in fact, it looks like we only cloned once, but here's the secret. There's 2 of them in there, in the exact same spot. So we drag these over. And with the very specific way I drag those, you will see. Honestly, we've made a Minecraft cow. Like, really, this is more Minecraft cow than toaster, but it's fine. And we can grab all of these at the same time by drag-clicking to select a square and bring them down. And all these legs are associated with each other. So we can call this toaster leg. And toaster leg 2. If I had named this toaster leg before doing the copy, it would have had the name toaster leg point 1, toaster leg point 2, and so that I would have needed to do less renaming, but it's fine. What's a little typing in the long run? So, these objects are associated with each other, and I like how they're sized and what their proportions are. And so, while I could individually hide them all or lock them all in position so they can't be edited, we can do something that will help us better for future proofing, where if we put all of these in one group called legs, then we can interact with them all at the same time. So I have made a new folder called legs. And so with it, we get toaster leg. And we drag it in. And you can see that's now off to the side a little bit. And that is a folder sort of standard for, that means this item in the list is inside the folder. And so if we close the folder, you can see that vanishes. It still exists, but is in that folder. So try and keep in mind that sort of formatting there of, if it's off to the side like that, if it's indented, that means it is within a folder. And so now, since all those legs are now within the legs folder, if we click the eye, all of them vanish. And if we lock it, all of them become untouchable. So with the legs complete, let's work on that lever. Let's see. Also, a good thing to do is, let's just hide everything here. It's good to look at every shape that you have. We've got pyramid, we've got prism, we've got cube, we've got pentagonal prism, we've got hexagonal prism, and we've got cylinder, and we've got plane. Here's what they look like. These are your starting building blocks for making all 3D models here. But the thing is because you can grab these vertices, as I mentioned, and drag them and move them, you can make more complicated shapes. And in addition, now might be a good time to talk about extrusion. Extruding a face will extend the face of it, the face that you interact with, that you extruded. And so let me get an example. What's a good one to use for this? How about a cylinder? We've worked with cylinders already, so. What if we wanted to sprout a pair of arms out of the side of the cylinder? Conceptually. We could get this face, like what if I wanted this face to stretch outward like this without sort of pulling on the rest of the model like that? You see how it's grabbing the edges and yanking them to the side? That's where extrude face comes in. So if we click extrude face, you'll notice something kind of neat happens. We have just created a rectangle. We've gotten the rectangle shape that it already was with the selected vertex, with that selected face, and pushed it outward. And now we have a new set of 4 vertices here that we can grab and interact in a way that does not mess with the rest of the fundamental shape. And so if we were to do that on the other side, extrude face, we can mess with that one too, and we've just made a wing nut, essentially. It's kind of a wing nut shape, isn't it? Just needs a hole in the center. And then the actual shape of the face that you are extruding does determine how extrude face works. So because we did on the sides, those were rectangular shapes. You see how that fundamentally, when we highlight it, is a rectangle? If we do it for the top here and extrude face, we extrude a, while it is untextured, we will get to that, don't worry. While it is untextured, it is another segment of the cylinder shape. So with all of that out of the way, that is how you extrude things and how you can make advanced shapes out of simple ones. And with that, let's extrude some shapes, shall we? Let's get ourselves a... A secret forgotten cylinder that I left there. Let's get this hexagon, and if it's a lever, it needs to be both much smaller and much flatter. Something like that. And then hold T in order to enter scaling mode, and then drag, as established before. And now let's do something kind of interesting. You can extrude and you can extrude extrusions. So this is the spot on that you push down with your thumb on the lever, but we want it to have a stick that extends into the toaster. And so we extrude the face, and you see this on its own could work pretty well. That honestly looks okay. So if we were to just scoot this over, that would be fine. But for the sake of example, here, you'll notice that if we try and select these and hold Control, that way we can precisely move them, try and bring them in, we get this sort of shape. Because again, because we're moving the points around, and because they're connected with lines, edges, as they're known, it is changing the shape of the stuff around it. What if we want this to immediately sort of become a T shape, as opposed to this more A shape here? To do that, we're going to double extrude. So we extrude once, and then we push it all the way back until it's very close. Like that. So there's our little extrusion there. And then we are going to go and extrude it again. And with this, we now have two lengths of area that we can influence. So if we grab this one and drag it in, that leaves us with a very small area over here that is being modified. And if we drag the other one in as well, make them about even. It doesn't have to be perfect. Something like that, and then bring them even closer. Now we have an extremely small area that's being modified here. And so when we grab these and match them to line up, you will see we have made a little stick without any of that warping, because all the warping is reserved for this spot right here, which we've made nice and small. And so here's our nice little lever. And since we've made it our lever, let's go into that list and keep up to date with making sure that we're naming everything sensibly so we don't forget what we're doing and don't forget what is what. Lever. And then we still want to move it so it will not be locked. Stick it right there, and you can see that's fine, that it's overlapping. It is actually intersecting with the toaster, but that's okay. The toaster is a solid object, and this is a solid object, and we can live with that. So we can grab this, move it up, and now it looks like a... Honestly, we made this kind of excessively long, so let's shorten it a bit, because it doesn't need to be that long. And move it closer. Again, for precise movement, I am holding Control. You can also see that at some point we have made our anchor point, the red star there, is a bit far away from where we want. So if we hold Control and Shift, we can move that around. The anchor point should be right in the middle of that. And there we go. That's looking better. Maybe move it just a little bit more in. There. So now I've got a lever. The in-between shape blunts the warping in a controlled way. That's a good way to put it. It's a little bit hard to describe the concept, I admit, but the nature, if you pull a vertice, it's the edges that are connected to that vertice are going to change shape to match. So if I pull this out, you can see that that vertice is now way over there, and so the rest of the shapes are bending in weird ways to accommodate the fact that that vertice is over there. Because that edge needs to line up, because that's what a vertice is. It is a corner point. Ultimately, it's something that does ultimately make sense, but it does probably take a while to wrap your head around. Moving on, though. What's a toaster without toast? Toast is a cube, isn't it? It isn't really, but as you can see, we're accidentally grabbing the toaster body again, so that means we need to lock it. And we've got a new cube. Toast. Toast is a type of toast. And so there's what's going to be our piece of bread, but it's absolutely the wrong shape. Bread doesn't look like that. So we bring these in to make it nice and thin. Got sort of a Texas toast proportion going here. And then we get to our side view. And as you can see, the side view is a lot more sensible now that we have multiple objects to work with. And also the side view has taught me that one of our feet, or maybe two of them, aren't actually aligned correctly, and I never noticed. And indeed, if we look carefully, those are sticking out. This is why an orthographic view is very helpful, because it allows you to see things like this, which you would otherwise miss with perspective. So we unlock legs. We select all the vertices of those. Press Control for precise movement. And scoot that one in. And scoot that one in. There we go. Now it lines up better. Relock them. And back to what we were doing. If we do wireframe view, which only shows us the edges and the vertices, and allows us to X-ray vision through things, so to speak, we can better adjust the shape of this toast in relation to the size of the toaster itself. Because once again, there are no units here. These aren't centimeters, these aren't meters. None of that matters here. It's all relative. Relative sizes, relative shapes. Light years, yeah, why not? This is the biggest toaster that has ever lived and ever will live. Yeah, you heard me, live. Each vertex is a star. Let me fix the... As you can see, the anchor point, which is that red bullseye thing, is misaligned with how I want... Misaligned where how I would expect the toast to be. So I grab to start dragging, hold Shift, hold Control for more precise movement, and bring it back into the center. That's a decent sized piece of toast, but if it's a toaster, Toasters toast 2 at a time, so we need another one. And folks, how do we make another of an exact copy? You remember? I toasted too thin. Noted. We grab these vertices and pull them out a little bit. Now the toast is a bit thicker. Send in the clones. That's right. We right-click it, we clone mesh, a duplicate is made, overlapping with things. We scoot it over. We mess with the viewports however we need to in order to make sense of it. In this case, this view looks pretty nice. And so we just line that up. And then we look at the 3D one, and that looks good. Honestly, we've made like a toaster dog at this point. And that's the beauty of artwork. You don't really know exactly what you're making until you make it. Or at least that's how I approach it. I don't know about the rest of you. Control-C, Control-V. Sure does. Now we have 3 toast. So you will notice very slightly that the left toast and the right toast here seem to be different sizes, just ever a little bit. But the thing is that is a limitation. That is not actually true and is actually representative of a limitation on how PicoCAD's, your viewport, its limitations. If you zoom in and remeasure them, they are the same size. But the thing is this is pixel art. And so it's approximating. You can see that wall there will sort of shift in and out. And so this is another reason where it's not good to work with extremely large or extremely small models, is if you're working at sizes like this, not only is it very hard to select anything, but also proportions can be wrong ever so slightly just from the viewport. And that's another reason that using space in order to select a viewport makes things easier, because now the screen is quadrupled size and you have better accuracy as a result. Okay, we have a toaster. Let's see, what else does this toaster need? There's the elephant in the room, of course, of this doesn't look like a toaster because the colors are all wrong, and that bread looks like green squares and everything like that. But that elephant in the room we will get to after we have established the shape of this toaster. A smiley face on the front or the side. We could put a head on it. Unicids, hi! Unicids is my partner in crime for streaming, and if you like the look of my model here, Unicids was drawn by the same artist. A bevel on the top. That is something that is very easy with 3D modeling programs, not as much here. That would, to make a bevel, the one way I can think of, maybe it's easier in this program and I just don't know it. There's always that possibility, but the only way I could think of is doing a bunch of extrusions and then manually making a bevel out of the extrusions. So we get a new shape like that, and we pull it downward and don't accidentally select the toast itself. And then we do that, and then we zoom way in, and then we just repeatedly move each of these over so they're like that. You see how that kind of made a bevel shape? Yeah. Extrude top face and scale in. Oh. That's very good point, Daedalus. 1 second. Once again, we're going to lock the toast. So we're going to extrude this face, and that's going to result in this, an upper segment. And then we are going to grab that face and, well, we are going to grab those vertices and scale I'm not sure if we can scale like that. I think scaling might be a model-only thing. Let's check the shortcuts to see if that's true. It looks like it's scale mesh, not scale face. Yeah, so nonetheless, though, we can still do this. So what Daedalus described is moving each of the vertex, scaling down the vertices here, and so moving them inwards. And then that made a nice bevel from this end, but if you look at from the front, it's not beveled like that. So if we get the front view, and we pull those inwards like this, and bring it down a little more, now we have a nice bevel. Thank you, Daedalus. That was a very smart idea. Our toaster has been beveled. Lexian, what you are describing is a concept known as Boolean difference, and Boolean difference is a feature of many 3D modeling programs, but is not a feature here, alas. If we wanted to make a hole in the top of the toaster, we would extrude and pull the extrusion inward. If we did that, we can make a gap inside the toaster, but we are going to cheat a little bit for a later step. But yes, this toaster has been beveled. Looking pretty cute. Honestly, this is a critter. This is a friend. This is a creature. I love this creature. And the toast doesn't seem like it's lined up. Yeah, it isn't. Let's grab this toast and... yeah, we're just eyeballing it. That looks about the same there. Toaster critter. Texture is transparent and have reversed normal cube inside. That's true, Daedalus. This is also a tutorial for beginners. We will get to normals. We're not there yet. Vertical indent going downward. Not perfectly sure what you mean, but I can take your interpretation and make something out of it. We extrude this face. We grab the extruded bits. Pull them way in. Pull them way in. And then pull those way in this way. And actually make them fully flush. And with it almost fully flush here, like that, we now have a small thin face. And if we extrude that one, now we have this. And with that, we can bring that way in. Now we have a little hard to see with the texture, with the checkerboard pattern, but we've got kind of like a little socket there now. An outward poking socket. Might still have the lever a bit more. I'm not sure if that's what you were describing, but that was my interpretation of it. And because we are modifying the toaster body itself, remember to hydrate, especially if you're talking as rapidly as I am. Because we're modifying the toaster itself, this is not a new model, so it still follows the rules of the toaster body. And remember, this entire toaster, with its beveling and with its lever track there and everything else, that started as a cube. This is a cube with a bunch of modifications. And that's what 3D modeling is. You make a cube, You pull that cube, you shape that cube, you make a cylinder, you pull that cylinder, you shape that cylinder, and eventually you make something that kind of looks like something else. So, we could keep going on making a electrical cable for this, or that sort of thing, but I think it's a good time to move on to the next step of making a 3D model, which is textures and UVs. Let's save this as Toasty. This is our friend Toasty. Thank you, Daedalus. I received it. Okay, so it's finally time to look at these buttons. These are ordered from left to right on, if read from left to right, you first start work on the left, and then you move one step to the right, and then once you're done there, you move one step to the right again. So next in the list is this symbol. Welcome to the world of UV texturing and UV unwrapping. So, we have, this is called a texture sheet. And this is our model. We now only have the perspective view of the model. Oh, and the locks that we had placed on it are still effective, so let's go back and change that. In fact, let's start with the toast. Let us hide everything except for one piece of toast. And then we go over, and now we are looking at this. So why is this a green checkerboard? That is because, wait a second. Aha, it's still locked, so I couldn't select it. If something isn't working right, it's probably not working right for a reason. Okay, where to begin? Let's grab this side of our toast. If we click on it, we select that face. We are going to be doing this on a face-per-face basis. So we've selected that, and you'll notice that we've now got a square shape also highlighted here. Now what we can do with this is we can drag the shape, and very weird things start to happen. This can be hard to figure out, but perhaps if we look at this sample stuff here, you might be able to understand it. If we put the center of that toast over here, we can see that down arrow shape is now in the middle. And if we slowly drag it across, we can see space plus mouse button or mouse symbol. The camera box. That's a good way of putting it. And not only that, but without changing the shape of the model itself, we can change the shape of the UVs. X, Y, and Z coordinates represent the height, width, and depth for 3D modeling. But since we can mess with textures in a unique way that operates on its own domain, these are called UVs, which is another two-dimensional dimension separate from the actual physical space. Yes, we are working in multiple dimensions here. Bear with me. So if we grab only this corner and drag it, you can see it's doing its damnedest to make a representation of what I asked for. Nice and warped. And you can see this is kind of like a camera view. And if we make this square again, or at least rectangular, you can see that once again this becomes like a camera. And again, this is only applying to the first face that we selected. And so we can do all sorts of fun things with this as well. We can make this nice and thin, and that will make, in turn, the text very tall to the point of being almost unreadable. But suffice to say, that says mouse button. But if we make it square, because again, the model face itself here is square, because that is square, if we make this square as well, the pixels will be proportional with each other. You may notice warping here. That is a distinct visual choice. That is part of the aesthetic, and that relates to the limitations that existed for models early on in the days of 3D modeling. There's ways to negate the amount of warping that occurs, but a little bit of visual, like stretch and movement like that is going to be inevitable when working on high detailed texture models. It is part of the deal. So, the thing is, this right here, this is a drawing board. This is a texture. And so let's just scribble right here. And now let's drag this over. And you can see we made a scribble. And if we reduce the size, we can make it so we only see a little bit of the scribble. Once again, it's like a camera. The camera box, like Kipper said. Let's go and undo all the way back, Control Z, till we are back here. And so we have these colors to work with, but each of these individual colors can be changed. However, we are strictly limited on how many colors we are allowed. We can have this many colors and not a single one more. That many unique colors, but they can be whatever colors we wish. For now, the closest similar color to toast, or the inside of toast, would be this sort of golden orange color. So let's go and draw, just in a random spot here, a square and fill it in. And now we've made a nice piece of cheese product. And then, in order to better sell this as being toast, we will draw a line of brown around the edges to represent the crust. There we go. It looks fine from this side, but as soon as you look at one of the other sides, the illusion breaks. And we did. So with the drawing program, there are several different things that are pretty standard for drawing program. We've got our eyedropper, which allows us to select a color. This blue grid is just there for your reference and is not actually part of the texture. And this gray background is in fact one of the colors. So we've got this side completed. This looks good. So what if we go and grab that one and just do the same? How's that look? We move it over here, and well, that's not great looking. We've got an incredibly thin spot here. It's incredibly thin on the sides to be almost imperceptible zoomed out, and it's extremely thick at the top. Why would that happen? Well, this relates to how our UV projection works. I'm glad I didn't read that, Daedalus. You would have given me a heart attack. And so the thing is we've got a tall and thin box, and so we need a tall and thin texture to match, because as I showed before, the warping does affect things, visual warping. So if we make this approximately the same size, and then we make a new illustration to fill in here, of which can be very simple. We'll just get the line tool and we will go like this. Honestly, this could have been done with a single color, but we can put little imperfections in it. So choose. Maybe this is one of those seed breads, you know? And so once you have the UVs unwrapped, and like handled correctly and in a position you like, you can just draw on your model. And so if we want this to be another color, we can just do that. And we can see it change immediately, live. And even if we're looking at this view, and with everything visible, you can see it changing there too. Just for the sake of example there. Let me go and get us back to a simple and clean look. And so, I wonder if this... Each of those edges should be the solid brown color. So we grab this, we line it up, grab the edges, scale it down, and once again, we could actually completely trick this by just doing, since this is a flat color, we could literally make a small square like that. And if we grab this, drag it over, and shrink it way down, way down. Ultimately, that achieves the same thing. You'll see that the top and side look identical, despite the incredibly different shapes that they are. Because ultimately, if you have a camera that has that sort of size, a camera viewport that looks like that, is it possible to reverse the texture? Very good question. We grab a face from here, face properties. I believe it's draw behind? No. Mesh properties. Okay. So I've activated double side mode. And if we delete this face here, now we can actually see inside. You might think that's nothing special, but if we didn't pick double-sided, we would actually get this kind of odd behavior. We'd look inside and there'd just be a void. This is because textures have one direction. And this is called the direction of the normal, I think. The normal is if you were to point the face directly outward, like what direction is the texture pointing, I guess. And so it's the outside of the body of the mesh, but if we do double side, then it also creates one for the inside. And so we can cut our toast open and look at the inside of it. But I digress. And then if you wanted it to not be perfectly flat like that, that would be further work involving extrusions and extruding things inward in order to make special shapes. All of this to say, here's our piece of toast. And so one thing, honestly, we probably should have done is, you see, reveal the full toaster buddy. That piece of toast doesn't match. And it didn't get edited because it's a different model. So instead, we are going to delete it. We are going to duplicate this one. Now that's fully textured. and move it there. Ooh, at some point I undid too much, it looks like. So you can see that we have this segment here, and I remember it being like that, and that's an error on my part. Let's bring that back in. There we go. Now it's for me pressing the undo key rapidly. So it's generally a good idea to handle the texturing of a single vert. If you're going to make duplicates of the same object, for example, 2 pieces of toast or 4 legs, then you want to make a single one first, texture it, handle all the UV unwrapping until it's in a good state, and then duplicate it after that. Only make the duplicates after that point. And so now an interesting sort of thing happens. So we are using the same texture for both sides of both of these pieces of toast. So you can see there's that inner square there on this side of each piece of toast, and there's the inner square on this side of each piece of toast. And so that means with a single line stroke, we modify all 4 of those at once. And this is because we are recycling this portion of the UVs. UVs can end up on top of each other without issue. And so we've got the UV for this side, this side, this side, and this side all right here. And you're allowed to do that, but this does mean that if you modify it, that modification is going to spread to all the others unless you make, like if I want exactly one side of one piece of toast to be blackened, I can't just blacken this. I would need to make another version of the toast that's blackened and then drag this square over onto it. That is the only way I could do that. As you can see, we can kind of do that here. If we want that piece of toast to be a yellow checkerboard, there we go. And only that one. So you can recycle UVs, and it does save you space because you cannot expand the size of this. This is all the space you have to work with. So smart recycling is good, but you can absolutely overdo it. Yeah, it looks a little like jam. Okay. Quick check-in, everyone. Is anything I'm saying making sense? Does any of this track? Sometimes you just gotta ask, hey, am I even coherent? Okay. So once again, because I kind of misdid my order of operations, had you up until UV unwrapping. That's fair. It's hard. It might be one of those things that you just need to noodle with and sort of poke at. Words you don't follow, but the visual makes sense. Gotcha. So we actually deleted each of those toaster legs, and we're going to work on only this one. You're going to lock and hide everything else. So now we have our single toaster leg. And this consists of a lot of sides, and we are actually allowed to select many of them at once. If we hold Shift and click, we can select all of them. And this means that if we select all of them and then drag them all around, we can accidentally make the glitchy trans right cylinder. Interesting. Welcome to the toast cylinder. But yeah, as you can see, this is essentially each of these faces is essentially a camera, and we are dragging around the camera view on this sprite sheet, this texture here. Toast toaster win? We can do that. Maybe at the end of the stream I'll make a toast toaster. But I think these toaster legs should just be solid black. And an easy way to do that is to just make a little black square. Well, that's weird. What happened? You see, this is running into an advanced concept that we will get into later. But we can see through the model now. And if we draw a shape across it, that didn't really help much, but we're seeing the background. We're looking through the model. Or wait, are we? Okay. We are, but we're running into several different overlapping concepts here. So let me dial it back a bit. These two colors up at the top are reserved for special cases. These are called the BG color and the alpha color. We will be getting into that later. For now, assume that these are just reserved for special use, and be done with it. The background color is, well, the color of the background. That's got to be a color too, and you can decide it. If you want the background to be bright blue, we can do that. Actually, it looks like the background color might be entirely on a separate interaction layer. Let's give ourselves a nice sky blue background. And yeah, you need something behind to see what's really going on. But that leaves us with the alpha. The alpha is currently reserved for this black color. And so instead we are going to select this white color and re-choose it to be almost pure black. Not quite, but almost. And as you can see, the things that were white here are now black, because we've got a limited palette, and if we change it, it's going to change in the model and on the texture sheet. So now if we make a square where each of the UVs that we moved are, like so. There. It's simple. And we could maybe make it a little bit more visually interesting by doing something like this along the edges. There. A bit visually neat. Although perhaps a better complementing color would do better. So we paint like that. Eyedropper tool, select the black, fix up, select the gray, fix up. There we go. Little toaster leg. 1 second. Oh. Well, there we go. Pardon me. Now with this modeled, we can go back, make everything visible again, and clone the mesh, clone the mesh, clone the mesh, and they're inside the toaster there. So let's just get this view and get rid of some of the visuals that we don't need. And let's just line all that stuff up again. Something like that. So we've got three different ways to view the perspective here. We've got wireframe, which is this. You can only see the edges. Solids, which is each shape type based on what you originally used is a different flat color. It can be kind of hard to see details because the lever jutted out bit is actually there, but you can't tell. and textured, which is, the final result version. And then finally, we can see what this is for, and it's shading. It allows you to sort of create the impression of a shadow, but the thing is because we've messed with the colors, it's not working quite how you would expect. Because it's expecting that to be a white color, because that's what it was at the start, and that's fixable with color ramping, which is a different thing outside the scope. Suffice to say, you can fix that sort of stuff by just clicking this little robot here, and that'll fix it. Color ramping is honestly a thing that I am not personally particularly familiar with, but the fact that this goes from dark colors to bright colors is actually important. Thank you, robot friend. And so we might actually be able to fix this by... Can we drag that over? We cannot drag it. Okay. Anyway, getting very distracted here. But there's just so much to cover, What next? Let's make that lever the same sort of visual material as the legs. So we go over, we make it so we can interact with the lever, and we go to the legs, and we make sure that they are all locked because they're in a group. And then we go into the texture mode. We select every side of the lever, including those sneaky hidden ones over here. Or at least as many as we can. Just grab a few. And if we drag them over here, we're recycling. And so now this has the same sort of look. And as you can see, we missed a few, so let's grab those and drag them over and take another look. Neat. Toaster buddy. Finally, let's actually make that toaster. So we lock everything else and select the toaster body. And let's make one of the toasts invisible for something that a fun trick that we are going to do. Sort of an impressionistic art trick that we are going to achieve. The part they never tell you in advance about 3D modeling is how much time you'll spend slightly repositioning the camera to select a few more faces. Mu brand toaster. I could make it Mu brand. Yeah, you know what? Let's get these sides of the toaster. And because it is a wide shape, let's make the UV for it wide as well. This will make it so the pixels that we are working with are relatively square. Although, this is interesting. I've made it wider, but it's actually making it more off-kilter. If I drag it over here, it's making the pixels... This is this edge. It's rotated wrong. And so what we can do is we can do what's called rotate UVs. We right-click the square and we click rotate. And now the pixels behave as we expect. So this will be easier to see if we actually write mu on it. So mu. So what we had it before was like that. And that way you can see it's sideways. It's facing the wrong way. And so we do rotate UV, and that fixes it. We can also flip it. And we rotate again. And now we've got because it's mirrored. Sometimes you just gotta flip and rotate the UVs until it facing the way you want. You can poke at it. You can poke at it and adjust it as you need. Yes, this looks ugly. But the thing is, that's the first step. It started out as something without texture. This started out as a cube. By drawing little bits and then improving them as you go, you are able to make it look nicer. And so we get this one. Whoops, didn't mean to draw over that like that. Get this one and also put it there. And once again, it's facing the wrong way. So we click it, and then we can either hit R or we can rotate UVs. I'm just using the right click so it's easier to see what I'm doing. But we can also just click and press R repeatedly to do that. Same thing. But we don't want Mu to be written on the bottom, the top, or the sides of it. So we are going to get this spot, and we are going to just make another square here, keeping it at the default size, and we're just going to get that darker silver color and do that. Making an empty box with this sort of edge highlighting that I do is a quick and easy way to give definition to the shapes of things. It's especially good for blocking things out, like sort of prototyping what things should look like. You can also see that some of the edges will be thicker and thinner than others, which will help you understand how you need to resize the UVs to make things more proportional to each other. So as you can see, I drag this one and those edges become bigger. And so if I try dragging these ones, that edge becomes bigger, but not the top one. Interesting. Once again, we've got a rotation issue. And yeah, actually this is behaving exactly as it should, because I'm dragging this around, this line is no longer visible. But if I were to draw it here, then it is. And now I've messed with these ones too, because we're recycling. Anyway. Let's just keep it as is. Select all these faces, because we want to do the same thing to all of them. Just drag that over there. Good enough. Front of the toaster. Good enough. Bottom of the toaster. Do we have a different gray color? I mean, we do. So let's try, that's the same gray color. That, and fill it in. There. We have artificially made a shadow. It kind of looks like shading, despite that just being the color of it. Grab this, and we're going to treat those edges as the same. Accidentally drew again, which means I need to reselect these. There we go. Oh, there's another face, and another face. This top one should be like that, but the bottom one should stay that gray color, I think. And then Lexian asks if you can import images for the program to pixelate. Well, you've got a very limited resolution here, and I don't think you can directly import images to, like, straight up. But one thing I did is to duplicate an actual bit of NES artwork. I pulled it up on the side of my screen and pixeled it all manually. So that option exists, but for turning a larger image into a pixel one that fits, you should do that in some other program outside. And again, you have a limited color palette, so you'll also need to posterize it by removing the colors, condensing it to a crushed set of like 10 colors or whatever. And from there, you will need to manually draw it. Yeah. TacoGS is saying approximately the sort of workflow, but ultimately that is a little bit beyond what PicoCAD2 itself is for, but it can be achieved by using other programs and then using those other programs as reference for then working on PicoCAD. But honestly, if you're using photorealistic stuff for a modeling program like this, that kind of feels like trying to hammer in a screw. For that, you might genuinely want one of the better and more advanced 3D modeling programs. Better. No, this is the best 3D modeling program. I didn't mean it that way. One of the more advanced and specialized. This is my favorite 3D modeling program of all time. Because look at what I've done. While explaining the whole process and spending all the time I've needed to, I have made a 3D toaster with Mu written on the side of it. I have created artwork while talking through the entire process of creating the artwork. This is really hard to do on traditional 3D modeling programs. So, we are going to do something a little special here. I want to give the impression of a socket for this handle, this lever to go up and down in. And so for that, we are going to use the color black, and we are going to pick a new spot on the UV. And oh no, we drew this and it's making a sideways one. And we fix that by doing rotate UVs. So we select it, rotate. Okay, that's closer to what I wanted. And then we can, and just like that, we've already gotten something kind of acceptable. But I think I can refine it a little bit more than that. Give it the old edges. And give a little bit of bumpers on the top and bottom, you see? Just with those 2 pixels, I've made the impression of a stopper at the top and a stopper at the bottom. Maybe the top stopper should be a little bit taller. Yeah, like that. Saw someone hammer a bolt into concrete earlier today. Lovely. Then yes, if that is you, make some realistic, extremely high detail models for PicoCAD. I mean, you can. It's kind of like trying to break down an entire house using nothing but a single blunt screwdriver, but, you know, if you work out long enough, you might find ways to achieve it. You might find techniques that work, and I will be equally impressed and equally horrified, but some people have already achieved unbelievable things using this program. In any case, though, we're now working on the top of the thing, and here is where we get a little silly with it. You see, this is why I kept one of the pieces of toast available, is because I am going to go and draw with this black color that we made, and oops, that's not the right shape once again, so that means we need to rotate. It is not the... Nope. That's more of what I was aiming for. So if we draw something like this, and we draw another one, and we rescale this to be closer to accurate to the proportions and fix up our little mistakes there. And maybe fashion it up with some fake lighting. I don't think that works. I don't think that looks good. There we go. My friends, we've made a toaster. And you know what? The wild thing is, the fun doesn't end here. Because we haven't touched this last one, and this is where stuff gets really funny. And also, this is where I haven't touched. I have not actually messed with this menu at all. So I understand some of the fundamental concepts behind this next menu, but this is going to be my first time actually doing PicoCAD's version of it. My friends, it is time. Gray along the inner middle, give an impression of the heating wires. Something like that. Kinda. If we wanted to do better heating wires, then we'd be doing inward extrusion, which is a can of worms that I will get to at the end of the stream. But we've got an acceptable toaster. I'm also noticing a ever so slight amount of the screen texture here. Let me see if I can figure out what exactly the deal is there. I wonder if I have an extremely small face right there. That is... Oh, I can't select it because I don't have the toaster. I have the toaster set to locked. It's presumably part of the toaster body. Yep, there is a tiny, tiny face right there. A small errant face. Let's go and just turn it into a tiny square. And put it in a gray zone. Now it's gray. That's how you solve problems, you hide them. Okay. Are you ready for the final phase? We've got a toaster. It's 3D. And if we wanted to, we could export as a cool GIF. Look at that, baby. We can give it a nice outline. We can give it scan lines. We can make it orthographic or perspective. Or we could do some nice fisheye stuff. Give it some nice texture warping. And we could save this. And just like that, I have a GIF of Toasty. Anyway, final menu. We select... We need to make everything selectable. But not the toaster body. Leg selectable, lever selectable, toast... Both toast pieces selectable. Select the lever. Animation. Let's try... So we've got rotate X, we've got move X, we've got scale X, we've got wiggle X, and we've got dot And we've got hide. If we drag them down, we can... Now if we hit play here, we can see what happens here. Okay, let's change it to Y. And now if we extend this, we can make it go slower over a longer period. Change the frequency, and that will make it so that's how many loops it will go through over the span. Up top, the bottom. The thing is, we don't actually want this type of movement. So we trash that. And so now that we know that the y-axis is the vertical one, the upward pointing for the way we made our model, again, everything is relative. If we had made... it's less relative in this case because there is a dedicated top view, and that's the upper left one, so perhaps that metaphor doesn't work here. But if we were going to be modifying the lever's position, we should put the lever in a position that should be at the start. So the starting position of the lever will be well aligned with the top here. Right there. And then in order to push that lever down, let's try Y and see what happens. That's going the wrong direction. But the thing is it says distance 1. This can be a negative number, distance -1. And so if we go to the end of the animation timeline here, and then adjust this value, you can see where we can look at where it stops. And so there we go, maybe a little bit more. We can just edit the numbers manually in order to poke at it further. And once again, we've got a little bit texture warping, but it's fine. That's just going to happen if you look extremely close. Ugh. Wow, this has been a lot of talking. Alice program in middle school. I don't quite want the lever to go down at such an incredibly slow pace. And so this timeline, it looks like we have exactly 8 seconds to work with. It looks like this might be another fundamental limitation put into this program. So if we shrink this down, though, that makes it do the whole process faster. Although, before we do that, these are called animation curves, and I really like how they're hiding these. This is something that you could program yourself in other programs. Like you could design what these curves are, but this is what a linear curve looks like. It starts at the top, goes to the bottom. Let's try ease in. It slowly accelerates and then goes quick and then immediately stops. Ease out. Exact opposite. Goes quick real at the start and then slowly comes to a stop. Soft. Essentially, it is ease in and ease out at the same time. Elastic. Overshoot and then reach the final destination. Bounce. Head down, reach the bottom, then bounce. And instant. We're not here to animate, we just want to move it to a new spot. And then ping pong. Let's try soft ping pong. Ping pong, it will make it so it does the same animation, but backwards halfway through, which will bring it exactly to its original position. So you see it starts here, and it ends there, and if we reset the timeline, perfectly matches. So let's do soft curve, make it shorter. That looks good. And let's grab the toast. Let's grab both the toasts and put one of those for both of them. Put it at the very start. And then we will want to adjust the native position that this toast is starting at. At the start of time, where should the toast be? That's what my question is. And I think the answer is right about there. Elastic with ping pong. Let's find out. Why not? Elastic ping pong. Shrink it down to make it go quicker. Bounce ping pong. It's like dribbling a basketball as it bounces back up. Instant ping pong. Meaningless. Well, almost meaningless. Warps down there, and at the end, warps back up. Ease in ping pong. Ooh, anyway. Back to where we were. I managed to nail that pretty much exactly. Wow. Move y minus 2.5. Let's do the same. Make it nice and small. Okay, and about at this point, the lever should do a new action. And the fun thing is we have 4 sockets that these actions can be. So if we wanted to do something really weird and wobbly, we can have multiple things happening at the same time. So it's rotating. It's rotating another direction. These can overlap with each other. And we'll combine and do all of them as needed. Updating textures in the middle of the animation. Not something you can do with PicoCAD, but you can cheat it. Because since you can hide models and thus show them, we can make a second toast model that is burnt. If we make a second duplicate of toast and we hide the toast after it goes in and swap it, that would be one method. Again, kind of out of scope for what we're doing, alas. If I had more time and I wasn't actively explaining every single step, that might be something I do. Okay, and at this point, the lever flings back upward at maximum speed. Oh, perfect. Bounce works great for that. Boom. Secret toast. Everyone loves the secret toast. This one we will make line up in the same way. But as you can see, we got things on the wrong timings and in the wrong positions a little bit, so. Right about there. And right about there. If we stop at the exact moment we need, then it's easy to line other things up because we got this line here. Like some sort of timeline. You know? But that's not popping up nearly as high as it should be. Let's get that 1 and turn it to 20. The toast is gone. Perfect. Let's do the same to the other piece of bread. And let's watch. And this is a time where curves may be useful. Let's try elastic and see how that looks. Sometimes you just gotta noodle around and see how it looks. Launch at the same time, slightly different distances to make it a little bit more visually interesting. And then here, we create another move that leads toward the end of the timeline. Minus 16.25. And we do ease out. Let's see how that looks. Not quite what I'm after. Bounce. Oh, that's great. Oh, I love that. Oh, I love that a lot. Although honestly, 16.25 is too big of a distance because it's coming to an end at the bottom of the toast. So let's add 2.5 to it, and that should bring us. Okay, so that'd be 75 and 14. And that should put us in the starter position, hopefully. No. Got my math wrong here. Oh. There. Now it's lined up. Now we do the same for... Can we copy paste these? Oh my god, we can. And then this one needs to go a longer distance. So this needs to be... Let's just noodle until we find the right distance, shall we? The lever is also not quite returning to the exact same spot. That's something I can fix, though. Right, if I just go to the end of the timeline and adjust there. Okay, let's fix that lever. It's because it's going down by 185 and going up by 175. Boom, fixed. Okay, still not perfectly happy with it, but we're getting close. The start point of these should be a little bit lower, I think. Oop, I messed with the wrong thing. This is acceptable. Will I share this toaster publicly? Oh, you bet. You know it. Okay. I happen to know a little bit about just the slightest amount of doing pixel art, so I can absolutely make the word moo look a little bit better than that. The Mu T0 STR model. And then while I'm poking at this, I do have some more space to work with, so let me noodle a bit more. Could I do this in fewer clicks? Probably. Are there hotkeys for doing this? Probably. Ah, we have the chance to talk about alpha channels. So look at this. I made a color black to just have access to, but at the top here is the reserved alpha color, which just happens to be black. It can be any color we pick. So let's, we're not using lime green. So let's make lime green the alpha color. And that allows you to paint holes and things. It's treated as a color, but the color is actually hole, which allows you to see things through it. This is called the alpha channel or alpha masking or an alpha color or anything like that. Yes, it is useful for making things that are glass or see-through or stuff like that. Cha-cha. I wanted to do like one of those cross lines to represent a 0 with like a line through the center. But Toasty Model 2. And with the animation completed, save, export, export GIF. Purple outline is kind of silly, but I don't know. It's Mu-ish. I think I'll stick with the black outline though. And we have our GIF. We can change the size, and that will... Oh, shoot. Can they be only used for GIFs or imported into other programs? Well, let's look at the menu and see, shall we? Export, GIF, texture, OBJ, GLTF, or sprite sheet. So you can make a UV unwrapped sprite sheet out of it, textures, but OBJ file is a type of object 3D model file. So yes, you absolutely can. GLTF, I'm not sure what that is, but that's something you could look up. Mu's TOSTR. Okay, so with all of that done, interchange format defined by Chronos for OpenGL models and other assets. So, with this done, it's time for a couple of little showcases. Oh. Okay, goodness gracious. I have a couple of models sent to me by Daedalus, and we will look at those, but first I'm going to see if I can find... Please hold for one moment. I'm going to cut the feed as I go and browse to see if I can find a few of my previously made models. No, it's localized per login, so I can't pull those up easily. But let me get that folder open and figure out the directory here. Daedalus, do you know the directory this is in? It's not labeling it with a name. Is it just in like the game's, or rather the program's Steam directory? No, it doesn't look like it. It's in the Steam one. Is it? No, it isn't. It's probably in C users. 1 second as I find this. Ah, I found Toasty, so. Okay. So, here are 2 models made by Daedalus. Well, Daedalus. Is Freer and Staff made by you before I open it? It is. It's Freer and Staff from the show Freerin. And one that I'm extremely excited to take a look at. We can see it's... You can take a careful look at the different polygons and meshes of it, and we can look at the sprite sheet for it too. The sprite sheet is unedited because those are all flat colors. You can choose to work in flats as well. Both are animated. Oh my goodness, they sure are. And I am very, very excited to look at this because this is called Mu Teaching. Hold on. Camera fixed. Animate. Oh my god. Yes, you make 2D segments by using the plane tool. That is a perfectly flat two-sided piece of paper. That is so cute. Oh, you even got the hair to have... The hair is made out of multiple planes in the shape of a square. Or no, you made a big square around the entire head and then used transparency to make the front of the hair non-existent and put a cube head on inside of that. Very clever. So, so cute. Huh. That's me. That's me teaching. There's the sprite sheet, and as you can see, the black color was used for transparency texture. If we were to draw over it, you would see that that is in fact a square there. Just very cleverly hidden. Absolutely lovely. Beautiful and wonderful and precious. Did that on the fly while I was running my class. As a reminder, Daedalus is also responsible for this version of my form. Hee hee. Also helped me make this one. Hee hee. Oh, and also made these ones. These little fellas. Mu in 3D. In any case, though, oh my goodness. So, we're going to end off the stream the way we usually do. Let's take a look at settings. And in the About section, programs are made by people. For a broad definition of people, of course. And games are tested by slimes. Yep. Check out PicoCAD.net. A tiny modeler for tiny models. This is the most fun I've had doing 3D models. And while that is not a high bar to clear, because as I mentioned near the top, every 3D modeling program is so incredibly advanced and esoteric that it makes me cry. This is accessible, and I was able to teach you how to do it just in the span of it. And in the amount of time it took me to explain how to do all this, Daedalus in the chat built this. So If you like rapid iteration, or just messing around and doodling quickly, this is a great way to doodle in 3D. Mu craft. Right then, let's see what you can read to, shall we? I hope my teaching methods have worked decently well. And I hope that y'all were able to follow, at least to a fair degree. And if there's little pain points and stuff, the creator of this program has made a how to use PicoCAD in 5 minutes tutorial video. And as always, if you don't know how to do something, check the shortcuts. And part of my testing was making sure that that shortcuts list actually does mention everything. Because back when I tested it, I didn't know you could move the anchor. That's a kind of important ability. So there Riverside Wings was in Bakumatsu era Kyoto. Thanks for joining, everyone, and this was a lot of fun. Very, very vocally tiring, but very fun nonetheless. Need that head pat emote. We also need the vocal lines of gibberish from Diaries of a Spaceport Janitor. That way you can introduce yourself and say you're lurking by going, Keomba, or Spesa, or Aswi. Fun, learned a lot. At the start, everyone who voted in the poll said that they didn't or barely have used 3D modeling. So, I am honored to help. Thank you, friends. To another place.